Today we're going to be looking at making clay tiles. We're going to use stamps, impressions, and any kind of found objects around your house or your classroom to decorate these. We're going to do it in that Indian style. So clear off your space and make sure you have a sheet of paper or paper towel when you roll out your clay so it doesn't stick to your surface like your desk or your table. You're going to push down with the heel of your hand to start flattening it out. You don't want these any thinner than a pencil. So sometimes I put a pencil down next to mine before I start rolling it out with the rolling pin because that keeps the rolling pin from going down anymore on that pencil or any lower than that pencil. I flip it over to make sure it's not sticking and so that I can keep rolling it both ways. And once it's as flat as my pencil, then I know I'm ready to put my square template on there. If my square template doesn't quite fit, I might have to smush it just a little more. But remember, not too much. If it gets too thin, it makes it hard to move around. So I'm gonna put it on there just so it's corner to corner like that. Then I can take my cutting tool, anything that you have around the house that's a straight edge. I'm just gonna take this piece. A regular plastic knife or a kitchen knife works too. If you have actual cutting tools from your art class, you could use those. But clay is so soft and malleable that it's really easy to cut it with just about anything. I could even cut it with this cardboard if I wanted to. So now I have my beautiful tile on here. If I want to have an overall pattern on here before I get started, I might take something like one of our rubbing templates that I like. I'm going to set it on there, cover it with a paper towel, and I'm gently going to roll. And I mean, like, I am not really putting any pressure on this tile, hardly at all. I'm just giving it a gentle roll, a couple pats, firm pats on there. And you can see it stretched out of shape a little bit. So then I'm going to carefully, gently peel it up off of there. See how it's a little sticky? But it gives it this really cool pattern. So put your template back on there because we want these to be nice and squared up with one another, right? Same sizes to make one big group project. I'm going to trim out that square again off those extra edges so that mine matches up with other people's along the edge. Keeping it square, and now it has that super cool pop-out pattern, just like this one. This one is concave, it goes in, and now this one's convex, it comes out at you. If you need something to help you get started to continue, you might pick something like a cookie cutter. I'm not going to push all the way through because I want this to stay a square tile. I'm just going to gently tap, tap, tap in that top level surface and wiggle it out. And then that gives me an extra bonus there where I can change things inside and outside of that. Maybe I use a rubber stamp that I found that I want to put some flowers in the corner. Again, very gently pushing, not too deep, not too hard. Some of the stamp ink came off on there. No big deal, it'll disappear later. Won't even see it, I can wash it off. Maybe I found some buttons that make really cool patterns and I want to do that in the middle of my tile. I can push it in and then with my fingernail, I'm going to pop it back out like that. Other things I might do is I could find some other squiggle patterns that I might stamp on there if I wanted to. I could also use things like Legos to add additional little stamps. If I wanted some additional circles on the inside of my flower pattern. I don't want to get too carried away and have it be messy, so I'm going to be careful how much I add to this. Other things that I could do is I could take drawing tools like this one and I could add additional stripes to my tile because those are going to show up really nice when we start doing the two different colors of glaze in there. We'll get some trapped inside of all of these different marks and then some that will not be. So we'll have two different colors on here when it fills in these beautiful pattern areas. And you notice with this I have to keep cleaning off the little balls of clay so they don't get stuck. I'm going to tap, tap, tap. Make sure I don't let this edge disappear from my cookie cutter when I'm working there. I might tap around that edge very carefully. Right? And then I might want to continue those stripes down here. I want those edges to stay fairly smooth. We don't want them to get too roughed up. it gets too full, you might have to go back, empty it out a couple times. Straighten and smooth that edge back out just like that. So now I have another set of patterns on here. What else can I do? Oh, I could take something like this, and instead of grooving it, I could just push into it. Now, again, I have to be super careful. I'm not poking all the way through my clay. We want this to still be a tile that's intact, right? So it's not cut all the way through. That's why it was important to try and keep it pencil thickness. That'll prevent some of that. I'm just pushing down a little bit into the clay. All right, sort of like that. I still want something that really kind of pops. Let's see, I could use some of these on the edges. Just push down gently to get a zigzag and a slightly lower level edge there. And then maybe I want to build up something in the middle. I want to add to it, like I want to make a little bit of flower in there. So maybe I pull off some clay. Okay, and I can pinch these into little petal shapes. So sort of like a teardrop shape. Flatten them out a little bit and then sort of round them out. I'm going to make several of those before I start attaching them to my tile, so they all kind of look the same. If I make them all at the same time, that muscle memory builds up in my fingers to help me make sure that they look the same and that they're not all totally different from one another. Pinch and then fold, pinch and then fold. And you can do different kinds of petals for yours if you would like. You don't have to pinch and fold. Maybe you cut yours out so they're all sort of flat and then you fold them, or you just leave them flat petals. That's always an option. So all of my petals kind of look the same now. I'm going to try them out, make sure they look okay as a flower. They do. Now whenever we attach something to clay, we always have to score and slip. So I'm attaching these to the center part right here. So I'm going to scratch it up. That's the scoring part. I'm going to add a little bit of water there because I want these to stick, which then means I also have to scratch these up a little bit on the back before I put them down on here. And this sort of acts like Velcro, so during the drying process your clay doesn't pull apart from itself. It's going to help lock them in together or zipper it in together. And again, you don't have to do a flower on yours. You might pick to add something else to the center of yours. Each of these tiles is unique to the artist creating it. There we go. I'm going to make sure all those petals are still sort of bent. And in the middle is kind of plain. So I'm going to go back in. I'm going to add some dots in my clay. Sort of like that. And that gets it to give it a little bit more busyness. And maybe even I'll go through, I think I like this even better where I've kind of scored it up a little bit, and then I'm going to draw tiny little pieces of rolled up clay in there to make it look like little pieces of pollen. I'm going to tap, tap, tap because those aren't scored and slipped on the back, so I'm going to have to be careful they don't come off during the drying phase. And my tile's finished. I'm going to move this to the drying rack and let it dry so it can go in the kiln.